Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host Brett Murphy, and for today's video I have a brand new ranking for you all, and I am going to be ranking all 16 of the MCU sequels. So Black Panther Wakanda Forever has finally hit theaters, and in order to celebrate the occasion, I decided I wanted to do a few MCU videos. But recently, I've ranked the movies, I've ranked the shows, I've ranked them together, I've ranked the heroes, I've ranked the villains. I've done a lot of the same stuff over the last little while, so I wanted to try to mix things up. So that's why today I decided to focus on the sequels only, seeing as how Black Panther Wakanda Forever is itself a sequel. I was originally only going to do the second movies like Iron Man 2, Thor the Dark World, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but I decided just to include all of the sequels because it was only an extra few movies. Before I hop into the actual ranking itself, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. There's somewhere in the ballpark of over 100 videos on that playlist currently, so I guarantee you'll find something you like. And so without further ado, let's hop right into things. Number 16, Thor the Dark World. Not only is this my least favorite of the MCU sequels, it's actually my least favorite MCU movie. I don't hate it by any means, I don't actually dislike any of the MCU movies, I've seen them all at least a handful of times, but this is by far the weakest in my opinion. It's just a dark, dreary, dull movie overall. It had a lot of potential in my opinion. I actually really liked the lore and design of the Dark Elves, but they ended up being completely underwhelming villains. The only real strong part of this movie is that dynamic once again between Thor and Loki. Aside from that, this one was very much so a miss in my eyes. Number 15, Thor Love and Thunder. Well, that didn't take too long. We have reached yet another Thor sequel. This one was arguably even more disappointing in my opinion because I love Thor Ragnarok so very much. You're not going to see it for a while on this list. I had high hopes for this one. Taika Waititi was back in the director's chair, they were bringing Natalie Portman back, Christian Bale was cast as the villain, it had everything going for it, but it ended up being a fairly colossal disappointment if you ask me. The only real shining bits were the things I just mentioned. I loved Natalie Portman's arc in this, I loved seeing her as the almighty Thor, and Christian Bale was superb as Gore the God Butcher. I definitely wish he got a lot more screen time, but even what he did get was super solid, and I thought he was excellent in the role. Everything else just didn't really work for me. A lot of the jokes fell flat, a lot of the dialogue was really cringy, and it was too much. And it really pulled me out of the movie a lot of times, and in the end, I just ended up not really caring for it anywhere near as much as I was hoping to. Number 14, Iron Man 2. This one actually gets a little bit too much hate in my opinion. Okay, sure, it's definitely not as good as the first Iron Man movie, but I still think there's a ton of fun to be had with this one, okay? I actually do think that Don Cheadle was a better version of Rhodey than what we got from Terrence Howard. I actually really liked everything that Tony went through and sort of that relationship that we dive a bit deeper into with his father. I liked that Nick Fury was in it a little bit more. I loved Sam Rockwell as Justin Hammer. So yes, definitely Mickey Rourke was very underwhelming as this bumbling, grumbling version of Whiplash, but the action goes big and a lot of the jokes landed with me, so all in all, yes, this one is more towards the bottom, but this is kind of the turning point in the list where I actually think everything from this point on is actually fairly good. Plus, it was also our introduction to Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. Number 13, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I feel like everyone's always kind of shocked when I have the Ant-Man movie so low. I think they're hilarious, but in my opinion, that's their biggest value to me. Like, that's their biggest selling point is what I'm trying to say, is that they're funny. I love Paul Rudd, of course. I love Michael Douglas. I love Evangeline Lilly, but both movies had unbelievably underwhelming villains, and both of the stories just kind of fell flat for me. I find them to be hilarious. I genuinely do, and I still think there's a lot of fun to be had with the shenanigans that goes on in these movies, but in my opinion, the Ant-Man movies, this sequel in particular as well, are just a little bit underwhelming. Number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Believe it or not, this one has actually grown on me a lot in recent years. When I first saw it, I was actually a little disappointed because I loved the first Guardians movie so much. But as I've rewatched it time and time again, I've actually grown to appreciate it a lot more. It's not as big and bombastic as the original. Not all of the jokes landed in my opinion. However, this one has a ton of heart. It is all about family, it is all about friendship, and it is much more of a deeper dive into these characters and their relationships than it is anything else. And there are so many moments I simply adore in this movie. I loved Kurt Russell as Ego the Living Planet. I thought Mantis was a wonderful new addition to this ragtag group of misfits. So all in all, this one is sort of a step back in some ways, but also a huge step forward in other ways, and I cannot wait for Volume 3. Number 11, Spider-Man Far From Home. Of course, we saw it a mile away that Mysterio was going to betray everyone in the end, but Jake Gyllenhaal was the perfect fit. I thought he was incredible as Mysterio, one of the MCU's best villains. I do love Tom Holland in the role as Spidey, but there were just some elements that didn't always work that well for me. I don't believe in any of this like drone illusion technology. The final act is just kind of a major CGI fest, which we do get often, but I just find with this one's just him fighting drones. It kind of lacks that depth and real hard-hitting moments. So taking Spidey out of New York for the first time, I think, ever, setting it in Europe, having it feel like a bigger, grander adventure was definitely a move in the right direction and a natural progression for the character. Number 10, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I love Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's one of my favorite movies of this year. I had a blast with this one. I thought that Wanda was a phenomenal villain. I thought that Benedict Cumberbatch killed it once again. What I love most about this movie is that how it subverted my expectations, okay? Everyone thought this was just going to be cameo fest, the movie, and there are some super solid cameos in here, but what I liked is its more deeper themes and its more personal story than people were expecting. I thought that Xochitl Gomez was just a magnificent addition to the MCU, and I cannot wait to see more of her. I loved Sam Raimi's direction. He is one of my favorite directors, and his fingerprints are all over this movie. The horror elements worked really well for me. I liked its shorter runtime. I thought it was very well paced. All in all, I really don't have much negative to say about this movie because I simply love it. Number 9, Iron Man 3. Yeah, I might get a bit of shit for this one, but truth be told, I love Iron Man 3. I've never understood the hate that it got. I think that the Mandarin twist is very clever. Yes, I get that people at the time, because we have the real Mandarin now from Shang-Chi, but I get that people were pissed that we didn't have the Mandarin considering he's such an iconic villain, but I thought that it was an extremely clever and well-executed twist for the movie. I thought that Aldrich Killian was a super good villain. I loved the handling of Tony's PTSD after the events of the Avengers. I like how Pepper played a bigger role in this one than she did in the previous two movies. I thought that the comedy was on point from Shane Black. I thought that the action was very well shot and that too was on point. That final battle kicks all sorts of ass, and I consider it a Christmas movie personally, and I always like to watch it around Christmas time. Number 8, Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I am so relieved and thrilled to say that I simply was blown away by this movie. It was epic, it was emotional, it was powerful, it was exciting, it had a deep, moving story. It was 100% a love letter to Chadwick. This movie was done in honor of him and in memory of him. Everyone delivered on their performances. I loved Tenoch Huerta. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, and I'm likely not. As Namor, I loved Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams, and it made me even more excited for the Ironheart series. This movie was just, it was grand, it was epic, it was elegant, it was everything I wanted it to be and so much more. The only real negatives I had with it is that, again, like the first Black Panther, I think some of the CGI was a little bit shoddy, and it is a pretty lengthy runtime. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'm at a loss for any more words. I really did genuinely adore this movie. Number 7, Avengers Age of Ultron. I really have no issues with this one at all. I think that it is an amazing sequel. I think that it does everything right. I freaking love James Spader as Ultron, one of my favorite, probably top 3 to at max top 5 MCU villains for me. I love everything that goes on, how it starts to plant the seeds for Civil War. I thought the story worked well. They introduced us to Vision and Scarlet Witch and briefly this version of Quicksilver. I think that there are emotional beats that were hit well. I liked the tone of the movie. The final battle is just all sorts of crazy and bonkers. You got a city floating in the sky that's going to act as a meteor that destroys the world. Like, there is so much going on in this movie, but I thought that it was handled with care. I thought that it was well paced. I thought many of its ideas were well executed, and it's set up brilliantly for the future. Number 6, Thor Ragnarok. This movie, to this very day, is still probably the funniest MCU movie in my opinion, and I love this sort of reshaping of Thor because this is what the character became. You go from this to Infinity War and Endgame and forward, and this is who Thor is now. This is much, much better than what we originally had in my opinion, but this completely reinvented everything that we knew about Thor. I loved newcomers like Korg. I thought Loki was also superb in this movie. Chris Hemsworth absolutely killed it. I loved Mark Ruffalo and Hulk being in this. I love Jeff Goldblum in this. And Hela is also a top 3 to 5 villain for me. I just love how colorful and vibrant and bright and funny and just overall enjoyable this movie is. Are you looking for the perfect gift for the movie lover in your life? Or maybe you just want to treat yourself? Then look no further than the most unique piece of movie art you could possibly have with Movie Palette. Visit moviepalette.com right now and use code BAM15 at the checkout for 15% off your order. And now, back to the video. Number 5, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The first Captain America movie I love, okay? That's no secret whatsoever, but the first Captain America is definitely a little bit campier, a little bit hokier, but I always found that it worked. This is a serious, dark, espionage thriller, and I simply am head over heels for it, and I always have been. The Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes, is one of the best villains, and now he's a hero. He's also one of the best heroes. It's one of the best story arcs in the MCU, in my opinion. The action is extremely well coordinated, well choreographed, well shot, some badass fight scenes in this movie. So yeah, this movie did a ton right. It really did sort of flip the MCU on its head with the whole Hydra actually being S.H.I.E.L.D. thing. It had personal moments that really cut deep, like everything with Bucky, but it also managed to deliver on the bigger, more bombastic superhero moments too. Number 4, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I think it's no surprise that pretty much everybody and their grandmother loved this movie, okay? We all knew for a pretty long time before this movie came out that Toby and Andrew were going to be in this movie, but it still did not keep me from screaming my face off and being in near tears when they finally appeared on the scene. Really, the only gripes I have with this movie is that the final act, sometimes there's a bit too much going on that you can't really focus on and appreciate some of its moments, and it kind of sucked that Lizard and Sandman felt completely sidelined. But aside from that, Willem Dafoe was back, arguably better than ever. Alfred Molina was back, and I love that we had those moments where he kind of got to be good again. I love Jamie Foxx back as Electro. There was just so much good in here. The inclusion of Doctor Strange, everything with the ending just, oh, it had me in tears. Everything with Aunt May had me in tears. Tom Holland gives a powerful, impactful performance in this one. Seeing the 3 Spider-Men on screen together is what dreams are made of. Number 3, Avengers: Infinity War. This to me is an incredible, basically flawless masterpiece of a superhero movie. I mean, it ended with the snap, one of the most shocking, daring, and bold movie endings in recent memory. It was very much so a Thanos story. It focused on him, and Josh Brolin crushed it like nobody else could have. There were crazy, blow your mind moments in this movie. There were some very down-to-earth, deep moments in this movie. I loved the teams, how they got separated with the forces on Wakanda and the forces on Titan and the different battles going on. This movie was just pretty much everything that it promised to be, and it set the stage perfectly for Endgame. Number 2, Captain America: Civil War. What I love about it so much is that it brings everything so down to earth and makes it real, especially that montage when the Sokovia Accords first get brought up to the Avengers' attention, where it shows security cam footage and cell phone footage and everything from the bystander's perspective, from the civilian's perspective. It shows that there is a ton of collateral damage when it comes to this job, and that's something that never really gets focused on in any of these big movies, in my opinion. So many cars and buildings and everything get blown up, and no one ever thinks about the people that are inside of those things, and that's what this movie did, and it made it real. I loved the conflict between Tony and Cap. I love everything that goes on between Cap and Bucky. The airport scene is forever engraved in my memory. I love how the sides played out, and this movie to me was just everything I had hoped for and so much more. Not to mention it introduced us to Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther and Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and Baron Zemo, in my opinion, is a severely underrated villain. Number 1, Avengers Endgame. This movie is the definition of epic, in my opinion. This movie was everything I could have wanted and so much more. Like, infinitely more than I could have thought it was going to be, okay? This is probably the movie that I was the most hyped for in my entire life. And not only did it deliver, but it surpassed every single expectation and hope and dream of what I thought it could be that I had, okay? I love this movie endlessly. It's not only my favorite MCU movie, my favorite MCU sequel, but one of my favorite movies in general of all time. It is absolutely flawless. It makes 3 hours go by like a breeze. It is an epic, grand, satisfying, superb, phenomenal, flawless finale. And that is why it is without a doubt my favorite MCU sequel. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. While you're at it, be sure to let me know how you would have ranked all 16 of the MCU sequels. If you're a movie lover of any kind, then my channel is the place to be for you. Be it rankings like this one, top 10s versus videos, tier videos, I have it all and so much more, with a massive backlog of nearly 600 videos already on the channel and many more coming every single week. So if you enjoyed this particular video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content from me, then smash that subscribe button right now. While you're at it, don't forget to ring that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you. And while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.